So, welcome to the RecWired Podcast. An interesting guest, not our normal type of guest today. We've got Matt Dawson, former England rugby player, former Lions rugby player, and currently working with our newest partner, the Instant Office Group, to provide offices to our membership. So, Matt, do you want to tell me a little bit more about how you ended up working with the guys at Instant?
Of course, a pleasure. And thanks for having me on, Andy. I retired from professional sport in 2006. I had a couple of years where, to be perfectly honest, I was just messing around on TV, doing a few reality shows, and I was working on A Question of Sport on the BBC. But with always an eye, a half a mind on working in corporate world. Always enjoyed that part of it whilst I was playing. Was working for, and still do work for, Sodexo, big FM food and facilities management firm. And a lot of those jobs from to sports people tend to be sort of ambassadorial, brand ambassador, those types of things, which if you get the right business, which I did with Sodexo, it worked really well. But I think I was carving a niche with myself around business development, staff engagement, working with HR teams as well. And Tim Rodber, who I played rugby with, lived with for many years, known him for sort of 30 odd years, had been drafted into the Instant Group by their private equity partners. And Tim wanted somebody to help sort of assist their sales team, but in a much more targeted, strategic manner. And because of just generally my network and sports network and the ability to sort of open doors and fresh conversations, I was finding myself having conversations with senior executives in large businesses, and that has enabled Instant and other firms that I work for to be able to develop those early stage conversations and have sponsorship within those businesses, so that we are getting the right products with the right people, consistently working with our partners and clients. So that's sort of where it all started, really. Yeah.
So, making that adjustment from professional rugby as it was then into the corporate lab, what were the biggest differences that you found?
I mean, there are ongoing. It's not something that just sort of happened for a couple of years that I noticed. I see it pretty much every day. I think rugby can learn a huge amount from corporate world, business world, as much as it tends to be the other way. And we're all sitting there in seminars and speeches and reading articles about how we can learn from sport. I think it works both ways. I think the one thing that I still get a little bit frustrated around is either side of the deal, so either side of the game, and the game, playing a game. I don't want to be dismissive to say that's the easy bit, but in the context of sort of where you've come from and where it all ends, it actually probably was the easier bit. You're not getting any medals for all the training and preparation and tactical debriefs and analysis that you're doing before and after, and yet they're absolutely crucial. And I think certainly the ability to prepare and debrief deals is a little bit frustrating for me, generally across the board. I'm just not sure it's in the training manual to be when you come through business school I mean, I haven't done that, but I always feel it has to be a little bit forced and a little bit secondary, opposed to, right, on this date we are going in to see this client and we're seeing the CFO and we've got one shot at this. Let's absolutely get fully prepped up to the max and make the most of this amazing opportunity. And then even sort of post deal, when the deal's done, right, what's next? How can we make it better day by day? How can we make sure that 3-year contract becomes 5, becomes 10? Where do we drive the real extended value to that business? And I think that's not quite in. It's about the here and now.
Yeah,
it's about I've got a budget, I've got forecast. Right, there it is, and I've got to get 10 deals in this week. Let's just get 10 deals, rather than if we applied ourselves a little bit more strategically and with better methodology, I think generally people could probably knock their forecasts out of the park.
Is that because everyone's sprinting quarter to quarter, as opposed to, right, okay, we're going to wait, this is about 4 years time World Cup, or this is about a Lions tour, or this is about the national championship, the year's time? Is it because sales teams run month to month, sometimes quarter to quarter, sometimes?
Yeah. It's I'm very much aware that I will be judged at a very different way to a sales director who has that quarterly goal to hit. And the prizes are big, and the time to get those prizes are more than just a quarter. However, there's got to be that constant cadence of deals, but with also being able to have your eye on a big prize, and being able to sort of manage the two. It is certainly something that I think I've maybe had that in my locker because of sport, and being able to go game to game, week to week, and put in the performances, but then still being very mindful on, where's my end goal here? Or what do I want to? Is it good enough just being in the England team, or is it good enough to be in the starting England team, or is it good enough to be on the Lions tour? Is it good enough to win the World Cup or to win a Lions tour? And therefore, you've got to do things around it whilst you're doing the, dare I say, basics of playing for your club or playing for your country.
Well, what age do you think you worked out that you were going to go right to the top?
I mean, I had aspirations from probably 15, maybe 15, 16, when you're getting into playing for your district, playing for your southwest area, and then you're playing for England under 16s, you're playing for England under 18s. You're wearing the white shirt, you're going to Twickenham, and you're watching the senior team, not realizing that realistically in 3 years' time you could be sat on the bench playing, ready to play for England. And so I think it was probably 15 or 16 where I was working out that I really wanted to play for England. That it wasn't I mean, there'd just been a World Cup, so and it was the first one. It wasn't particularly well promoted or advertised or even shown on TV. So I wouldn't say it was a World Cup aspiration. The Lions was very much an aspiration, and certainly inspired me with posters on the wall and all the rest of it. But it wasn't until I started playing at Northampton at 18, 19, where I was getting a little bit more serious about what I could do, how far I could go, what were the goals. I'm to this day, I'm absolutely the same to a fault, probably, that if I've got X, I want X plus Y. When I've got X plus Y, I want X, Y, Z. I'm just that wired to sort of strive to get to the next step, I suppose.
So as you were coming through the ranks, rugby would have been professionalising. I think 95 it went fully professional. So it would have been perfectly normal for players, probably came a little bit before you, that they would have proper corporate jobs and then also be, playing for their clubs, and sometimes international players, I guess, probably had careers outside the game. It wasn't a money thing, I guess, when you were growing up looking to play rugby. It was literally the love of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and even when it went professional, it wasn't. I mean, it was amazing to get a 5-year contract for a 6-figure sum. You were thinking, this is just crazy. This is off the scale. But it wasn't a ridiculous amount of money that you were going to, be able to buy whatever car you wanted and live in whatever house you wanted and go on holidays here, there, and ever. It wasn't that sort of lifestyle, but it was very comfortable. But yeah, the motivation was the jersey that you were wearing, whether it was a Northampton jersey, a Midlands jersey, England Lions. It didn't matter. And then I started playing. Even when I was playing for Wasps at the end of my career, I was actually getting paid the least I ever got paid in professional sport in the last 2 years of my career. But it wasn't about the money. It was about wanting to win trophies and titles and try and better myself as a rugby player. So yeah, and I think it's a bit too dismissive to say that it's missing now. I just think everything's very different now. I was a management trainee in a security company. I was a teacher. I was a salesman of a local newspaper in Milton Keynes. I was a teacher. Whatever job I could get, I was going for, whilst playing rugby on a Tuesday and Thursday night and game day Saturday. So it was, those things I think are just inherently in you, aren't they?
If you hadn't have been a rugby player, what do you think you'd be?
I'd probably be a teacher. I was a teacher when it went professional in a wonderful school called Spratton Hall School in Northamptonshire. And I was there probably there a couple of years. And I was sort of qualifying as I was going along, because I hadn't been to university. But I absolutely loved it. Really, really enjoyed that. Really good times, great people, fantastic working with the kids and parents and that sort of stuff. Really enjoyed it. So I probably would have stayed there, and I mean, it's the sort of job that you could be doing forever. But when it went professional, all of a sudden it sort of put you in a different window, put you in a bit different shop window. The people that you would meet, the companies that you'd work with, sponsorship deals, playing, being captain of your country, and everyone wanted a piece of you, working in the media, then working on Question of Sport. Then, I sort of had, best part of 30 years in the public domain. And so, there's a lot of angles to cover there. There's a lot of people that you meet. There's a lot of relationships that you want to help them. They will help you. I mean, only recently, in the last 5 years, have I really captured that and understood it fully, and the power that type of network and understanding of that network has for themselves. And I'm included in that, but it's not about my network. It's about our network and what we could all do for each other, which again stems back to my rugby days.
Yeah, I mean, we find that with our network, obviously very different, but I worked for a large recruitment firm, S3, did 20 years there, and I'd actually say that the network effect from the people that you'd been there, you'd shared those experiences with, even if you didn't work with that person directly, you just know the journey they've gone through, and there was a camaraderie around that, and everyone's going to everyone was on a similar sort of journey to you. So actually, I found that the network on the outside is probably even stronger than it was on the inside, and it's something that really surprised me when I left S3.
Yeah, I think doing business these days is there is so much competition. There are so many options. I'm finding probably more than I've ever seen in my whatever it is 15 years of being retired and sort of working corporately. I don't think it may be going back to back to the ridiculous days where why the Bribery Act came in. Let's go, as far as you go back there, where there was just stuff that you would, people, whoever it was, were paying for jollies and parties and events and dinners and all the rest of it. I'm convinced now more than ever that relationships are absolutely vital. And that doesn't matter who you're talking to. It doesn't matter how senior you think that individual is, at whatever level. Having a genuine opportunity to build a relationship and work at relationship, because there's not always instant chemistry, but to show people that the integrity and honesty that you have, I think is so important in today's business world because of all of the competition. You've got, everyone's striving for differentiation, aren't they? And everyone's on their website, I'm a differentiator in this area. We're a disruptor, all those words that we've heard a million times, and they might well be, but it's very competitive. So being a differentiator is actually not differentiating you from anybody else, because everybody wants to be. So the fundamentals of actually knowing and understanding the people is absolutely crucial. I mean, that's where I think that's where Instant will stand out, because because it's in the property market, everyone thinks we're a property company. It's like, well, we're not really. We don't have our own assets.
Yeah.
We're making sure that the space that people are working in, and for the businesses they are working in, is absolutely perfect. It is the right space for them. Not that the people are right for the space. It's the tenants who are giving the control to the client, and it makes a huge difference when all of a sudden clients are out there thinking, well, yeah, it's not just about how much space and how much it's going to cost. This is where are people coming from? How collaborative is the space? What's the breakout areas like? How close is it to the train station? What are the amenities? What are we using it for? How long are we going to be here for? Are we going to grow? All those questions that tend to get asked as a business is developing. Well, we're now saying, well, look, we can do that beforehand and give you the flexibility of growing at the pace that you want to grow out from a business strategy perspective, rather than saying, well, yes, we want to be 100 people in a year, but we're only 10 at the moment, so we're going to take an office for 100 people. Like, what are you doing, you utter lunatics? You're taking a space for 100 people for, and there's only 10. Have a space for 10 and make it the right space, and then when you get to 30, have a space for 30. It's all very doable, and that's one of the reasons that I got into Instant in the first place, is because of the change in this market is enormous, absolutely enormous. It's really one of the very few parts of corporate life which is going to have as significant change as it is. Recruiting is a really good example of that. You can't tell me recruitment is the same that it was 20 years ago. I just can't believe it is. I would be amazed if it's the same as it was 2 years ago, let alone 20 years ago, whether it's how people are recruited, the technology that's used behind it, the fact that you'll be recruiting on calls like this rather than queuing up in an office to go in. And with those enormous costs of people, IT, property, you could say the same for IT, you can say the same for people, and yet property historically has just carried on being this sort of quite old school methodology, which is now everyone's picking up speed and getting behind it, but it's a massive change within corporate society.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said there is spot on. I actually think the thing that stayed constant, I joined the industry in 99, the thing that stayed constant is still relationships always win the game, actually, are the deals, the tools around the side, the mechanisms. A lot of that has changed, but it's still relationships super matter in recruitment's effectively a trust game, and you build that trust with people. Really good example is how we started coming to work with the Instant Group. So it's one of our members, Ben Broughton. You guys did an amazing job for him finding the space in London and New York. And we talked to other property companies, but just the passion with how Ben spoke about you guys introduced us to Dominic. Turns out that Dominic worked for a number of years, I think, with my best mate. And we talked about that, and I checked out Dominic with my best mate, and I'm sure, I know Dominic checked out me with, and it's starting this partnership. It felt very easy to do that because we both had that sort of proof from our membership that it worked. You've obviously got a great organization there. You can see how the organization's grown. And also as well, just that sort of relationship, just okay. And there's some level of we know each other through other people. And that network effect is massive.
Yeah, very, very, very influential. Very, very important in building those relationships is your reputation, your credibility. And certainly for me, it's absolutely paramount for the clients that I work for. It would be really easy for them to think, he used to be a rugby player or he used to be on TV. What does he know? It's like, well, no, I've been with the firm for over 10 years, and I work with them every week. I know all the teams. I know how it's all pieced together. I know our motivations. I know our values. And what they're getting from me is that assurance and probably a bit of sort of reputational credibility as well that I'm going to get stuff done. I think that's certainly one of the many strengths that the Instant Group has. A lot of it's come down from Tim up top on understanding about change, because we're in that sort of change environment of real estate within our client base, and a significant change, and therefore we're going to have to try and be ahead of the game. It's so vast, it's moving so quickly. That's really, really exciting. So it's never easy to recruit these days, is it? But it's an attractive proposition for people to come and work at Instant, which then drives a really vibrant, fast, busy culture, and it can give back because of the nature of having lots of different products and solutions and locations. As you say, there could be in New York, could be in Sydney, offices everywhere. So all of a sudden you're part of an extended family. And the clients see that, they see that, they understand it, and therefore they will trust it. And if you get to that trust and loyalty part, particularly in the field of property, then it would be no. I've just moved house. It would be no different. I've had a friend introduced me to a property searcher. They did an amazing job. Well, do you know what the odds are? I'm going to use them again, or I'm going to refer them on again. I mean, it's no different. That sort of corporate world is very, very small. Whether it's you checking out Dominic and him checking out you, or clients doing referrals, or what we do for other people, it's really, really important to have that reputation and credibility.
Yeah, I fully agree. And it's that sort of people still buy from people. And as I say, and that will, it doesn't matter what the model is in property, it doesn't matter what the model becomes in recruitment, but I still think that will be super, super important going forward. When you must be sort of constantly evaluating the debate, is it work from home? Is it back to the office? Is it hybrid? What are you seeing, Matt? What's the world doing?
Well, it's never going to go back to where it was. That is for sure. There's me saying that. I think we've now fully understood, and most are embracing that idea of hybrid working. There has been a significant shift to get people back to the office, large corporates getting them back to the office in different ways and means, and that sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday activity is popular in some areas. The idea of hybrid working has so many different interpretations, from whether you're the business owner or whether you're the staff, what type of sector you're in, where you live. However, what we see at Instant going forward, whether that's 2 days, 3 days, 4 days a week, the ability to be able to have options as to where you work and flexibility and agility in how you work, where you work, how you even the flexibility in the types of leases or options that you have around space. That's where tenants and clients want to be. They've now got a taste for the reality, and landlords were maybe a little bit slow to cotton onto it, but certainly COVID has made it very, very obvious that the tech can handle it, the people are into it, that sort of work-life balance is being sort of satisfied generally, and so hybrid for a vast majority of our clients is where they want to go. There is a lot of resizing, downsizing to sort of maximize space in either in existing buildings, or to create some kind of workplace strategy going forward, which even just talking that type of language 5 years ago would have been, well, it was a really tough sell. But now the conversation is being initiated by the clients coming to us with our reputation of being able to do that globally, opposed to having to knock on the doors and sell this dream of hybrid working. So it's the tables have somewhat turned.
I really like the way you described it. So finding the right space for people, as opposed to finding this just a space for them, and actually working on behalf of their needs, and actually working out what they'll need going forward, as opposed to what they need right now. Or and you're absolutely right about recruitment firms buying an office for 100 people, because they'll say we'll bring in the 11th person. They'll see how big it's going to be, and this is a sign of our aspiration. So we've seen that quite a few times, but probably.
Conversely to that, well, don't get me wrong, I love that attitude. I mean, that is an attractive way to be thinking about having the growth and moving it forward. But there is a pragmatism that just actually wasn't out there. It wasn't available to be pragmatic in the market. Whereas now the strategy has completely changed because of the options that are out there, which is very appealing for not only the business owners, not only for the current staff, for the new staff, probably for investors as well. I'm sure a lot of your members are growing their businesses nicely and are maybe looking over their shoulder thinking, oh, someone's sniffing around here and wants us to join a larger group. I mean, we've seen it with some of our clients, some of our recruitment clients who are growing at a pace or maybe are being acquired into a big group. And those big groups are looking at their property portfolio and thinking, okay, there is an intrinsic value to having a portfolio that is maintained and flexible so that you can drop out or you can move on. There's massive value in that.
So what's the process of working with you guys? So one of our members, they've all got offices right now. So I guess the time to start thinking about this is before you need to, move or your lease comes up. So when do you typically start working with people and how does it work?
Yeah, I wish it was just as easy as, people have come to the end of their lease and now they want a different option. That is certainly the easier solution. However, I'm honestly not sure that I've ever done two deals the same. The solutions are vast because it could be a virtual office for two people for a month to kick it all off. It could be 30 people in a serviced office for 6 months. It could be thousands of people in Kuala Lumpur or Manila from a large corporate who need a service center. But probably the key to all of it is making the strategic decision around your property requirement. And in a lot of occasions, there's pain to start with. There may well be, you may well be in a lease, you may well be locked into a lease, and you might have to, think about subletting it and realizing some of that space because you want to go into somewhere smaller. You might be coming to the end of your lease. It might be next year, and you're thinking, what, we need to half our space because of how we're going to use it in a hybrid manner. But it genuinely doesn't start with instant saying, right, you want to go into that place right there for that space, that's perfect for you. The starting point, for instance, is always, what is your business strategy? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? What do your staff and your people need? We've got to throw into the conversation around sustainability as well as was our people, our tech, how we're going to be connected to that community and wider. So it genuinely starts. Most of my conversations that I have with the decision makers in business is a conversation about where they are and where they want to go. What's the end picture? And instant can get you there. It just depends on, whether it's that easy path because of the situation you're in. It might be a little bit tricky and there might be a little bit of pain. Sometimes there's a lot of pain in the short term, but then, of course, in 1, 2, 3 years' time, you're in a position where from then on, you will never find yourself in that problem again. And you're going to be wise to how you want to acquire space moving forward.
I think the other thing I really liked is the way you set up, that you can actually do the small companies. You've got a really nifty product to do the digital product to match people with space, right up to our enterprise members as well. So literally, right across the board, and teams set up for each of those specialist needs.
Yeah, but I think that for a vast majority of our clients, finding workspace, managing workspace is a proper pain in the butt. It's very daunting, unless you're the global head of real estate and you've got loads of experience in it. You've probably, there might be, I don't know, an office manager. It might be a CFO. It might be HR. Might be the procurement person, who have basically just been thrown something by the business to say, right, can you sort the space out, please? Now, and it genuinely doesn't matter whether you're, as I say, you're 2 people, you're 5, 10 people. Instant can give you a view of the market. So for that sort of number, it's always going to be serviced offices, or it might be a serviced office membership, or it might be a virtual office. But that information is at Instant's fingertips in a day. Right, whatever market you're looking at, anywhere in the world, because of the millions of data points that Instant have, because of their just the tens of thousands of operators that are on the system, that is available within a day. You don't need to go and travel anywhere. You don't need to get on a plane. Here are the 6 best options for you in Berlin. Right. Okay. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. Right. We're going to go and see those 3. One trip, either someone on the ground. We'll have someone on the ground there. It's such an easy process, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's not like we're turning around and saying, "Oh, we're going to charge you a fee for it." So we have a relationship with the operators, to help them fill their offices. So it's a pretty much it's a no-brainer to be using someone like an Instant in that market.
You're contingent. Our members only pay you. Well, they don't pay you guys, but you only get paid if you're successful. I.e., you find them a very good parallel to most of recruitment there.
Yeah. It's if you think about, if I'm going to buy some house insurance, I'm probably not going to go to one individual insurance broker online. I'm going to go on Compare the Market, so I see full visibility of all the options, and I'll make my own choice. But it will be specific to me. But then I have the ability to make my choice. And in that area around serviced offices, and other types of virtual offices, and it's I've probably said earlier, trying not to be the differentiator, but it's a little bit too good to be true, to be honest. And I think that sometimes can be a little bit of, well, hold on a minute, it can't be that easy. But
where's the catch?
It is really. But hopefully those types of examples of, go compare the market. We all use them time after time, but Instant has that portal available. Now, obviously, if there are bigger requirements, then Instant have products to deliver that on a more managed lease, but on very flexible terms. That's how it all started many moons ago, 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. It was a serviced office platform, but some of the clients wanted more than just a serviced office, but loved that flexibility and agility. They loved the fact that they would just pay a price and that's it for the whole term. There was no hidden costs, no surprises. That's what it's going to cost. But it's my space. It's my business space. It's branded like you've got branding on the back of the wall, on the wall behind you. It's our space. So we developed those types of products that were slightly different, but would then all sit into that sort of flex workspace solutions pot.
And it literally is, you can buy a long lease, you can buy a service. I mean, I think anyone who has property should just come, and we'll put the links on at the end, and just come and check you guys out. Certainly start that conversation, because as you say, worst can happen is someone's in the great space, they're in their best option right now, fine, fantastic, but you're absolutely right. Every time my electricity deal's up, my car insurance deal's up, I go and have a look, because things change, my circumstances change. So I think the parallels there are absolutely bang on. So depending on when we get round to releasing this, because it's Recruitment Expo week, but it's also, there's a Rugby World Cup going on at the moment. It must be interesting for you, having won it, to every 4 years see this thing, and just does it bring back the memories? Do you how many did you play in?
I played in 2, in 99 and 2003. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult not to sort of hark back to 2003 when we were successful, because every 4 years that's all you ever see. I think until another England team win it, we're just going to continue to see reruns of all of that. I think this time round that Northern Hemisphere has a genuinely good chance, particularly with Ireland and France. I think England, Wales have done really, really well. I'm not sure that I can see the winners outside of New Zealand, South Africa, France, and Ireland. I think even from the off, they were the top 4 sides, and I would be amazed if two are not in the final from that 4. But it's been a fabulous tournament. The tournament just gets better and better on every cycle. Very impressive. A lot of the games have been very impressive. It's made a big difference this year with having teams have had extra rest days. So the tournament's been an extra week, but actually I think the quality of rugby has been remarkable week to week.
I live down in Cape Town, so I've been watching what I can only describe as a national institution. And do you find that rugby union in England isn't as well supported as perhaps it is in some of the other, even though our success means that we should be absolutely, we out-punch in rugby union compared to, like you say, soccer. I mean, the England football team haven't won since '66, so hopefully it's not going to be 60 odd years before England win another Rugby World Cup. But why do you think it perhaps hasn't got that level of popularity, say it would have in a New Zealand or South Africa?
Football's the national sport. It's a lot easier to understand. It's a lot easier to play. It obviously has the playing numbers. It has the TV revenues and the ticket revenues and the merchandising. It generates a lot of money. And so therefore the Ferris wheel of football will just keep on turning at a rate. Unfortunately, rugby competes in that time frame. It competes in a slightly different demographic, even though we're trying to do our best to sort of change that. But certainly in England, we keep looking at football as the comparator, but it's not. It's just an absolute mile away for so many reasons. I think I just mentioned a few there, but it needs to stabilize itself first and foremost. It's got the governance of the game needs a slightly tweaking, needs addressing a little bit. South Africa, rugby is a very different sport within South Africa than rugby is in England, and even in France, down the south of France, everything is rugby. Everything is rugby. It's a hugely passionate stadiums filled with 40,000-50,000 fans. So it has a very different feel for it, and same with New Zealand. So even though people will always say, "Oh, the RFU have got a load of money and they've got lots of players," well, they have, but it's the actual the number of players that are playing in the league who are English and English qualified and are good enough to play international rugby is not as many as everyone would think. And so we need to address from a very, very low level. We need to get more players into the sport. We need to slightly change the way that we approach coaching and pathway into senior rugby. And that's, there's a very, very complex issue. Because in theory, we definitely should have won the World Cup. We've been in 2 finals since. Both against South Africa, lost both of them. And South Africa have that mentality and that World Cup mentality to win those enormous games. It's a bit easy to say, it seems to mean more, but there just seems to be more of a national motivation to be successful at rugby in South Africa than maybe it does in England.
Yeah, I had a painful experience in 2019. I literally flew down there. My family are down there, and went out to a farm with 4 other families. I was the only one in an England shirt, 24 others, including my 2 children in South Africa. Yeah, but you're right. It was a sort of a nation binding thing, and maybe if we get to the final and win it this time, it can be, it can be the same for England. I truly hope so. Last question I want to ask is, I'm never going to win a World Cup in anything. They don't do it in recruitment. I don't think I'd win anyway if they did. But just tell me what it was like, those last minute of extra time when, effectively your level of the Australians, what was it, second period of extra time, everyone's out on their feet. You'd have played like 90 odd minutes, and these days backs don't tend to do that. Tell me about just that. So I just want to relive what it's like to win a World Cup, and just talk me through that and what the emotion is.
It was, it was a very heightened environment. The senses were heightened enormously because of how the tournament had gone. Playing Australia on their home turf, we were quoted as being, the Orcs and Dad's Army. They gave us a full load of pommy bashing for the whole tournament, which we loved. And we had the adversity of going behind early and then not getting any of the calls. We got refereed out of the game, and I think ordinarily that probably would have been, plenty of excuses to say why we didn't win. But because of the incredible group of players and management that we had, we genuinely didn't know when we were beaten. So in that second period of extra time, when it's 17-all and there's 1.5 minutes to go, everybody knows that we're going to give the ball to Johnny Wilkinson for a drop goal. There was no element of surprise. We were calling it. They all knew it was going to happen. It was just, sort of who was going to crack first under the pressure. And we'd done all of that over that sort of previous 4 years. We'd been in games where we made the wrong decisions at the wrong time. And we were just so solid in what we were going to do. So from the moment the ball came into the line out and Cathy trucked the ball up and won the ruck, then I managed to make a little break through the middle. There was this rush and surge of energy from the England side, where it was like that sort of sort of cobra strike when it's up on the back of its body, and then the hood's out, and it's like, right, that's mine. And you could see that and you could feel that even though Australia scrambling back, England just went into proper lockdown. Right, this is the moment. And whether we won the ruck, Martin Johnson trucked it up again, and then we must have practiced that final scenario, however it was, whether I made a break, anybody else made a break, or we just drove the ball forward. We practiced getting Johnny in the right position to go for a drop goal. So to be able to do that with seconds left of the World Cup final, to look back on was incredible and fairy tale stuff, but there was still 20 seconds to go. And even though it went through the goal, I don't think anybody really celebrated. Yeah. It was turn around, walk back, or run back. They're coming, concentrate on what we need to do next. It wasn't until Mike Catt kicked the ball into the stand, and it was it was a bit dreamlike. And just the hysteria. Everything happened super, super quickly afterwards. The presentation and the lap of, we were trying to soak everything up and soak every moment that you could possibly. And we saw our friends and family that had come down to the side of the pitch, and I think it was just when you I was enjoying watching the Ryder Cup, and you can see when you're watching some of the Instagram clips of them on the bus and them partying and celebrating, and you're seeing a side of them that you've never seen before because they win on their own. It's probably it's the one sport where you can answer that question about what's it like to win in a team and what's it like to win as an individual sports person, because you can see on their faces it's very, very different winning it with amazing people around you that are doing things for you and you're doing things for them. Whereas a lot of individual sports, golf, tennis, etc., is it's all for the player. Even the support team, it's for the player. They're doing everything for the player. The player's not necessarily doing too much for the support team. That sort of look around the changing room after you've won a World Cup and you see all the players just probably physically undressed and emotionally undressed, really, was absolutely incredible. And I've managed to see plenty of guys over that period, but not many of them in one space. And I was with a dozen of them not so long ago, and it's an incredible feeling to go back to a group of people that you've been incredibly successful with on a global scale. In fact, saying it doesn't get any better than winning something like that, which is tricky to then try and compare to when you go and you get up on a Monday morning, you go to work. Now there isn't a World Cup trophy to lift. There isn't there's a couple of tries to be scored and a break to be made, but it's never going to be the euphoria of winning as a team. I mean, it's amazing when you do get a great client and do a fantastic delivery in a job, to maybe a client that changes the dial within the business and grows the business. Feels amazing, but I just don't think that I'll ever feel that euphoria again.
It must be quite difficult, because once you're off that high, you just got to, you knowing that you're never going to experience that again, that feeling.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting when, if and when England win it again, and how we'll all feel then. Because we've all ridden a wave some bigger than others, but we've all ridden away for 20 years as being the only Northern Hemisphere team to win it. And I would guess, maybe not for everyone, but I won't talk on behalf of everyone, but for a vast majority of that team, they've, their life has changed because of it, and probably changed for the better. That is the power of being successful with with a group that you spend every day with for years and years and years, whether it be a sports team or a works team. If you achieve that goal, however tough that goal is, no one can ever take that away from you. You're going to bump into a bar in 20 years' time, and one of you could be the CEO of one business and one of you is a chair of another, and you're like, we helped each other get to our paths to where we are now, because of that moment. And that feeling will never ever leave you.
It's amazing. Yeah, that feeling of being in a great team and succeeding together, those sort of shared emotions must be fantastic. Matt, it's been really amazing to have you on and talk all things rugby, sport, rugby and property. We'll put the links on underneath, but if people want to get in touch with Instant, what's the best way of doing that?
Of course, they can go to the website, Instant Offices, or just they've got a requirement. Email me; it's easy. matt.dawson@theinstantgroup.com. I've got direct access to absolutely everybody in the different areas of Instant, so more than happy to put people in where they need to be.
And no South Africans or Kiwis allowed to email you if England go out.
Don't worry about it. I've got a special place where I can send some of those emails, because we've just acquired a business in Africa, so I can send it down. I can send any of those dodgy requirements to do with rugby rather than any kind of workspace solutions. I can give them to my African team.
Fantastic, brilliant. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll maybe regroup after the World Cup and find out how it went. Cheers, Matt.
All right, thanks for your time.